Support for Consider This is provided by the University of Nebraska at Omaha College of Communication, Fine Arts, and Media.
From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Everyone has something that moves them. Whether it's watching their kids excel in the classroom, volunteering at a local shelter, improvement on the field or on stage, or walking for a cure. Lucky for us, our community has many great organizations that make these special moments possible. Of course, these organizations can't thrive without community support. That's where you and TAG come in. So what's TAG?
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, Together, a Greater Good, or TAG. Here to talk more about it are Leslie Fisher, the organization's co-founder, Lori Hellbush, owner of Spirit World, and Wendy Townley, Executive Director for the Omaha Public Library Foundation. Thank you all so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
All right, Leslie, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
So an article from October of 2012 read, two entrepreneurs are out to change the face of fundraising, right?
Yep.
Talk to us about those two entrepreneurs as we take a look at the picture here.
Okay, so that is me on the right, and then Holly Baker is my co-founder, and we had actually worked together for several years prior to diving into the world of entrepreneurship.
Okay, a big dive.
Big dive.
Right, so help
Yes.
set the stage. The face of fundraising, as it was called at that time, how would you describe it?
We kind of joke that fundraising is really another F word. That's kind of our joke. Nobody, when you hear fundraising, gets excited. You know, you're like, oh, this kid's gonna come to my door, they're gonna ask me to buy overpriced stuff, I'm gonna do it because I feel guilty, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody's out there kind of proactively giving to things on a consistent basis. And now having 3 children myself, and Holly has 2, we were starting to be those parents that were going to be going to our work and going to different places and saying, hey, can you buy some of this stuff you really don't need or want?
Okay, so I can't even imagine the discussions, right? This is a big endeavor, right, to get into. So you had known each other previously, so probably a little more comfortable then to come and sit at the table and talk about things. But what were those conversations like?
They were really just about, I had had my 3rd child, so I was on maternity leave, which is not really the time to tell your husband you want to quit your job. But I felt like where I was at in my corporate career, like I wasn't leaving a legacy, I wasn't doing anything I was truly proud of. I wasn't really making a difference. I've always loved nonprofit work, but my age kept going, and so I kept staying in corporate world. And at the same time, with all of my kids kind of coming home and Holly, you know, we were having those conversations of what can we do that give us greater flexibility and allow us to kind of make a better impact on what our time was being spent away from them.
Which is interesting because the whole world of fundraising and development is pretty demanding. So to find flexibility in just an ordinary you know, occupation would be challenging enough. Now you're going knee deep into this and trying to be flexible. Did you find that it worked even at the beginning for you, or was that quite an adjustment?
It's not as flexible as you thought. But I think a lot of it was just we had very big moving parts. You know, you're trying to work with a lot of businesses, and then you're also trying to work with a lot of nonprofit organizations. However, I've been able to like take my kids to school, so I'm just working at different times, if that kind of makes sense. So it's allowing me to give me myself flexibility, but it doesn't mean I'm working less than I would have been.
I ask because so many people I think are torn about that, and to be able to watch today you did it, right? You were able to juggle it, you were able to manage it. I think speaks volumes to you and to Holly and to your spouses and to everybody else involved. Sure. So from all of this, Together, a Greater Good is born, right? So just brief overview of TAG.
So TAG is really just about bringing local businesses and nonprofits together Everybody goes out to eat. Everybody takes their kids to family fun places. So how could we incorporate that into giving back? And kind of what we talk about is the millennials, the new generation of givers. You know, they will walk around with a coffee in hand 5 days a week. I did not do that in college, but that happens. But if you said, hey, do you have $25 you could regularly donate to my cause on a monthly basis? They would say, I don't have money. You know, so we're really trying to impact where you're spending your dollars and using that to go back to a greater good.
Okay, where you're spending your dollars. This is a great segue into Lori. Nice setup. Yes. So, Lori, tell us a little bit about Spirit World.
Sure, yeah. So Spirit World is a locally owned wine, beer, and spirits retailer, and we also have a gourmet cafe. We have an event space, and we have a bar. So we're kind of like 4 businesses under one roof, but primarily we're wine and spirits retail. So we're locally owned. I've owned the business for 11 years now. I bought it from a previous owner that had it 34 years, and we've been family owned the whole time. So, yeah.
Well, in the spirit of the program, then, how did you stumble into this? You said 11 years?
Yeah, so I actually was an attorney before that, and I knew the previous owner as a family acquaintance and knew that he was looking to find someone to take over. And I used to take my grandmother to lunch at Spirit World every other Friday. So I would go in every other Friday, and I knew the owner, and we would have a conversation about looking for someone to take over. And after a year or two, I just sort of thought, you know what, that would be really interesting. And we started that conversation about it potentially being me taking over. And a couple months later, I bought the business. So it was also a big transition.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask about your patrons. You were a patron.
I've always been a customer. As a kid, I went there for lunch with my family, and then, you know, and once I was of age, kind of learned a little bit about wine there, and, you know, I was kind of getting into wine and food as hobbies, and a little bit into whiskey, and so yeah, it just was something that it was something I loved anyway, and then had this ongoing conversation with the previous owner, and it just developed.
So favorite thing about what you do and why you stay with it, I guess.
Yeah, it's the flexibility is a piece of it, but it's really the challenge of, I love wine and spirits, but it's the challenge of running a business, and it's the challenge of keeping it current and keeping it relevant, and I love that every day is different, and that you're always just trying to sort of stay ahead of trends and know what's out there in your industry. And just the challenge of it all is really exciting to me. And, you know, I've said before, I love the wine and spirits industry, but it really could almost be any industry. I love the challenge of running a business.
Yeah, and keeping your ear to the ground in terms of those opportunities that become available, like TAG.
Right.
So how were you introduced to this whole concept then?
So Leslie came and met with me. I think it was just kind of a cold introduction. She was looking for businesses to come on to TAG, and we met a few times before we actually joined, because there were some early iterations of TAG that we did not participate in, and then once it became an app, that's when we came on. And once she told me about that change in the format, that was a lot more, as a business owner, that was a lot more appealing to me. And we joined, I think, pretty early on when it was an app, and I've absolutely loved being on TAG.
She brings up such a great point here, because not only are you guys launching this brand new idea,
Right.
you have to go out and sell it to people. So how on earth, and especially in a city this size, you know, it's all about prioritizing, you know, starting closest to home and working your way out. So who was closest to home for you guys? I mean, what was the obvious in terms of how you were going to kind of stack that list?
Yeah, so Holly and I were not salespeople, and that, I would say, is my lesson to any entrepreneur, is you will become a salesperson no matter what you learn. And we really started with who our friends and family knew and who we knew to kind of start. So we worked in our corporate jobs for a year and kind of did a lot of market research, met with a lot of business owners saying, hey, we have this idea, is this something you think is of value, would you use it, that kind of thing, before we took the total plunge into going.
Cold calls, visits, letters, all of the above kind of thing?
A lot of cold calls, and a lot of stop-ins. I mean, this was Facebook I mean, you know, this was 2012. I mean, so Facebook, businesses weren't really using Facebook in the way they are today. They were just getting started. You know, you would have never reached out to a business via Facebook like you could today.
Okay, so it begs the question then, how have you grown from this experience?
Personally?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I've learned to not take myself so seriously.
Okay.
We have screwed up a lot of cold calls. I mean, a lot.
Haven't we all?
And I think, you know, what actually I think kind of helped us to some degree was when we were on the phone with somebody, and I think Lori would kind of agree, like I was not a salesperson. I'm really about how can I grow this relationship? How can I help you? I'm not trying to shove something down your throat. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so as we've started getting more salespeople on to kind of help grow TAG, it's saying, you know, we've had people say, you can come meet with us. We're probably going to say no, but I felt sorry for your pitch. And they actually ended up joining. They've all joined, but I think that's one of the biggest things we've learned.
Well, it speaks volumes to you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So you have the founder,
Yeah.
you have the business,
Yes.
and then you have music to your ears. So Wendy,
Yes.
Omaha Public Library. So enter the nonprofit, right?
Yep.
So Wendy, tell us a little bit about the library.
Sure. So I'm with the foundation, and we've been around since 1985, and our primary goal is to raise private dollars for library programs and services that the public dollars don't cover. So that's everything from summer reading program, books, magazines, supplies for craft workshops, supplies for homework, after school tutoring. So kind of it touches all ages and all demographics who use Omaha Public Library. So our role at the foundation and my primary job is to tell the library's story on an ongoing basis and give people the opportunity to invest in big ways, and now with TAG through small ways as well, which is for nonprofits has always been challenging, is to find those what we might call a micro donor who's going to give small but give consistently and perhaps grow in their giving as they grow in their careers.
So interestingly, and I know you were very tapped into social media, but how did you first learn about TAG?
Very honestly, I started seeing stuff on social media about it, and working in nonprofit, I know a lot of other nonprofit professionals, and the buzz started coming up. In a lot of ways, it's kind of how Omaha Gives began and grew. Just a lot of people talking about it, and they're brilliant. Leslie is brilliant with the window stickers at the businesses. So if a business uses TAG, they have a window cling when you walk in, and I started seeing more of those around town, in Exarban Village, for example, close to UNO. So that's what piqued my interest, and seeing people talking about it socially and online gave me, I was interested in learning more and saying this is a way that we could possibly promote the library. Because at the foundation there's just 2 staff members. So we have to really be mindful of how we spend our time and raise every dollar.
So curiously, when you say you heard the buzz initially, what were some of those first things that you heard about TAG? Because you're right, you do have to pick and choose.
Yeah.
What was it about this particular thing?
I think the fact that it was so easy. And very candidly, from the donor's perspective, they weren't out any money. They were already spending, as Leslie mentioned, their $3.50 on their cup of coffee, and in doing so, they were supporting their favorite nonprofit. So it wasn't as if I'm taking money out of my checking account and giving it directly to this organization. Small that gift may be. I think that's what was the difference, and that's what was so intriguing to me.
So with this, we talk cultivation quite a bit in fundraising and development, and so much of that happens face to face, right? So how do you see this fitting in? Well, let me back up. Social media in general, how have you managed, Wendy, to make it work so that you still feel like you are cultivating? Do you pair it up with the one-on-one? But how do you do that?
It's complicated, and it's a dance. And as I mentioned, the foundation is just 2 staff, and with most nonprofits, if they have fundraising staff, it may be only 1 or 2 people, or at a nonprofit that doesn't have fundraising staff, it's the director doing it. So again, it's being mindful of that time and the time that's spent on it. So what we've done at the foundation is promoting it on our social media. I'm reaching out to the donors after they make their contribution and thanking them for them. And also when I'm visiting with potential funders and in grant applications, the question is, what's new? What are you doing to build your donor base, and what are you doing to build more, tell that story about the foundation? Because people know that the library exists, but they may not necessarily know about the role that we play in funding it. So being able to talk about our relationship with TAG and how we're using it to reach a different level of donor.
Yeah, that opens a whole different door for you and really does identify a population out there that would not have otherwise stepped up for you.
And as I like to say, I love the library, but what we do at the foundation, it's very boring. And it's not fun. I mean, honestly, to talk about us filling out grant applications and doing research and looking at library usage statistics. So this is one way that I love that we can make our work at the Library Foundation seem cool and fun, because I think it is. And if people love the library, it's my job then to captivate on that love and explain that investment opportunity.
Leslie, you're raising the roof at the library. I'm
yes,
not quite
thank
sure really
you.
what to say about that. You have made quite the noise there.
You have.
If I were a librarian. But in any event.
Right.
So let's go ahead and walk the viewers through the 4 steps that you have on your website so we get a little bit better idea of how this works.
Okay. So today, and we will be launching a new app here soon, but today the way it works, you will download the app. We are on the App Store and Google Play. You could visit any of our 350 participating businesses. All you have to do is snap a picture of your receipt, and then you choose where the business is going to make the donation to. So they take a portion of whatever you spend and donate it, but you get to choose where. And then we have the option for you to share on Facebook and or Twitter and just kind of promote the business as being charitable, give your cause some recognition, but also try to encourage your friends to do the same.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, this didn't start as an app, right? Tagged it. So how did it start and how did it morph and evolve?
So we actually followed Groupon's model, if you're familiar with Groupon at all. So back in 2012, Groupon was peaking. You couldn't wait to get an email every day that would say, here's your Groupon option of the day. It was before they had an app. And so we made a website where you could buy vouchers and then go, a portion of that would go back to the nonprofit, and then you could spend your voucher at the business. And what we really learned through that was we had a lot more men using the app than we thought, or the platform, and they said, I'm not going to bring a piece of paper in to Blue Sushi or wherever. It looks like a coupon. I'm not into that. And a lot of it was people don't think ahead. It's like, we're going to go out for lunch. I'm not going to think to go buy this voucher, print it, bring it with me, that kind of a thing. So we got a lot of user feedback and moved to the app.
This is interesting to see, Wendy, where this goes with people, because I think there's still that whole population out there trying to get used to the whole technology piece and how much their phones can really work to their advantage, how much they really can. So I guess you being the social media guru in my book, how do you see this? So I'm watching the program today. I'm seeing download the app, and I'm thinking, okay, that's going to entail a little bit of work on my end. And if I'm not already savvy, what advice do you have for people? I mean, this really does sound like a win-win.
It is.
A great incentive for people who might have been a little reluctant to make the best use of their technology. But what would you say to those folks?
So I will say I want to commend Leslie and TAG for how easy the app is to use, because I always put everything as a litmus test to my mom and say, could she figure it out? Or if I downloaded the app on her phone and showed her, and she's just new to texting, which I'm leery of, but it's going well. But it's very easy to use and very intuitive, and it walks you through very clearly step 1, 2, and 3. And I have sat across the table from some donors when it's come up and said, well, give me your phone and I'll show you how to do it. Because once it's there and you realize, oh, this is all I have to do is pick the restaurant, pick the cause, take a photo, and that's it, and you're done. So I think it's to your point, it is a generational opportunity to educate perhaps the less tech-savvy donor about how to use it. But once they know it's there and it's top of mind, and especially for donors who who will tell me, and I have donors say, I'm only going to go to lunch at a tag business so I can tag the Library Foundation or I can tag the Humane Society. That's great, and that's music to my ears too, because the fact that people are proactively making a purchasing decision knowing it's going to benefit a local business like Spirit World, and it's also going to benefit their favorite nonprofit.
Lori, do you find a lot of conversations really evolving around this particular topic? I mean, are people coming to you, are your patrons coming to you and saying, thank you so much for being a part of this? I mean, talk about that a little bit, and maybe the changing face of your patron.
Yeah, you know, we definitely get feedback on it. We definitely have customers that say that they come in because we're on tag, and sometimes even, well, it justifies buying that extra bottle of something, you know, or adding on the cookie to your lunch. Yeah.
Seriously.
So for real, yeah. And you know, we have really, really lovely patrons, and we are very fortunate that we have a lot of regular customers, and a lot of our regular customers are on tag. What I love most about it from a business owner perspective is that we get a lot of donation requests because we're, you know, a pretty visible business within the community, centrally located, and a lot of people like wine and spirits. So it's you know, we get a lot of requests for donations for fundraisers and things like that. But it allows me to, as a business owner, allows me to give back to the causes that are important to my customers, and it allows me to give back to the people that are my customers, more importantly. So from a business owner perspective, you know, you get requests from people all the time, and you're like, are you my customer? I don't, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's just it's such a win-win from a business owner's perspective, because the more you're my customer, the more I give to what's important to you.
Very cool. Okay, so when we talk download the app, that will forever be with me. Download the app.
Yeah.
You are speaking to a particular audience this way. So how do you advertise and market and, you know, make sure that you are reaching those people who are actually doing what you're asking them to do?
So we do a lot through the organizations, through our schools, through the high schools, through the nonprofits. We're trying to figure out, to Wendy's point earlier, of, you know, how do we provide easy ways for nonprofits to promote TAG, because, you know, we are not a one-night event, but we are unrestricted funds that is going to be coming in ongoing. And what we've seen since we've launched the app is every nonprofit seems to be doubling every year. So if they're actively pushing TAG, you know, you might raise $250 the first year, $500 the next year, $1,000, you know, now you're at $2,000. So we're not a replacement by any means, but, you know, Holly and I both worked for a large company here in Omaha, and we lost our largest customer. Very similar to nonprofits, right? If you lose one major donor, it could severely impact your budget. And we knew they would leave, but they left 2 years earlier than we anticipated, and we had to let go 35 people as a result. Wow. And so we are really trying to give people the entry level, you know, into these smaller donors that can kind of become larger donors.
Well, help them ramp it up. I mean,
Right.
it's a motivator, right, Wendy? I mean, you see, it's Omaha Gives is that day of, but it is an incentive for those nonprofits to say, we can do this. It's, you know, every little bit helps, and it does open the door, as we referenced earlier, about cultivating. So you have that $10 donor who, they may always be $10, but they're supporting your cause.
They are.
The point is you have the potential of.
Yeah, and the big piece with fundraising and development, it's not just about the money. My goal when I'm meeting with a donor of any size or any capacity is not just to walk away with a check. It's to educate them about what the library offers, why Omaha Public Library is such a value in our community. And through the donation, if I can turn them into an advocate, perhaps more than they were when we first sat down together, then that's a win. And I think that's one thing that you touched on a little bit earlier, that with fundraising, people just get stuck in the idea that it's about the money and the cash. And it's not, because people are not giving, you know, passively. Something is driving that decision. And as a fundraiser in nonprofit, it's your job to give them reasons why they should give and continue that relationship, you know, for many years.
Excellent, excellent. And Leslie, just minutes that we have remaining. Let's talk numbers. I'm sure there are folks who are pretty curious about, so how many Loris do we have out there? How many Wendy's do we have out there? So how many businesses do you have signed up?
So we have just over about 325 business locations on TAG in the Omaha Metro, and then we are growing into Lincoln, so we have about 20 in Lincoln.
Is that about what you expected Or did you have much in terms of expectations when you started? Just
I had
hoping?
big expectations. I had big
how she is.
expectations. But I'm a big, I want this to be a national product someday.
Wow.
And so I'm super grateful for the businesses that we have on TAG, but I obviously would like it to grow. And there's a balance, right? I know a guy in Papillion who drives to Spirit World completely out of his way because she gives back, and it's built that loyalty, right? So it's like you don't want to have the entire community on per se, but you want to have all the community-minded people sharing the load also,
Okay, all right, so about a minute, nonprofits involved.
Just over 1,000 in the Omaha Metro. We have started getting a lot of smaller towns in Nebraska that have nonprofits on that are, their constituents are in Omaha and Lincoln, or, they come to Omaha, Lincoln. So we're starting to get a lot of little small towns popping up.
And you've raised how much for the nonprofits?
We have just passed $500,000, so 500,000 this past year, and that includes regular tags, and then we always kind of have some campaigns that kind of do a little bit above and beyond. But our goal is we want to be closer to $1 million every year. That's our goal for the next 2 years.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
you're doing such great stuff.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
I'm
coming here more.
We want to put up your website so that if people want to learn more about anything that we've discussed here today, they can go to your website. Folks, this is not going to be that tough, but it's long, so hang in there. So it's simply the name of the organization, togetheragreatergood.com, 402-715-5230. Ladies, I want to thank you so much for being here today, for the collaboration, the partnerships, the wonderfulness that you're bringing to the community. Best wishes to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And thanks to our students who are working so hard behind the scenes, to our viewers for watching. As we close, a look at a farm in Washington County is seen through the lens of Jesse Schutz, a senior here at UNL. We will see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at netnebraska.org/Consider This. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.
Support for Consider This is provided by the University of Nebraska at Omaha College of Communication, Fine Arts, and Media.